Dr. David Dimoni from NRL, please.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I apologize. I speak essentially no Portuguese. I wish that I did. If I continue to return, I'm going to learn. I would feel much more comfortable. So it really is a great honor to be able to come and speak to this at this seminar. I think a very important topic at just the right place and time here in Brazil, and I want to. I want to say that how much I appreciated Dr. Goldenberg's remarks earlier in The Economist magazine. I feel like that's a critical thing for those of us who do research all around the world to always appreciate that circumstances are different everywhere. And so my objective always is to come a little bit of a secret is that I feel like I always learn more on these trips than I impart. And so that's always very much welcome. But it's also important for me to appreciate that lessons that we've learned in our research in the U.S. on the U.S. system may or may not have applicability to the Brazilian system. So it's one of our challenges to make sure that we're engaging with you all and your scientists in a way that maximizes the benefit to the Brazilian system. So again, great pleasure to be here. An outline of my presentation is shown here. I like to start. It's such a dynamic marketplace. I want to just let everyone know what the latest developments are in the U.S. market and the deployment of renewable energy. I want to talk a little bit about the way electricity markets are structured in the U.S. Many of you, I probably have some good familiarity with that, but for those of you who don't, I'll talk a little bit about the U.S. Electricity markets. A little bit about the status of storage deployment. There'll be, I think, some other speakers. Well, previously, Gabrielle touched on a few elements, and tomorrow there'll be a few more. So hopefully not too much redundancy, but I'll talk about where we are with storage in the U.S. Some very recent work that we've done. I'll touch on competitive markets, cost competitive, new markets with cost competitive storage. And then after some exchanges with Professor Sauer, I wanted to include some of the research that we're doing on grid stability without the use of storage. What are some of the flexibilities offered in advanced power electronics? So starting here, this is very recent released 2017 data. So this goes all the way from 1950 to 2017. And this is electricity production by technology in the U.S. And historically, we've been made up with the big four. Coal, as you see, gained prominence throughout the last century. Natural gas, nuclear, and hydro is this dark blue line. But the reason I like to show this is because I think it's a really dramatic chart. Look what started to happen in about the 2007 timeframe. Coal peaked in the U.S. and has been steadily declining since. And for those of us who are motivated by the urgency of climate change, this is a positive development from the perspective of carbon emissions in the U.S. And although there are some that argue that coal is being retired in the U.S. prematurely due to renewables, and that renewables are a factor in becoming more so. The first order reason is the low cost and abundance of natural gas in the U.S., and that's represented by this light blue line. And you can, in 2015, for the first time, natural gas overtook coal in production of electricity in the U.S. Some people thought that 2017 would see it reverse and coal would dominate again, but much to a lot of folks' surprise, even though natural gas fell off a little bit, coal fell even more, so still more natural gas than any other generating technology. So I having the new data and populating it in my spreadsheet, I was curious what some other representations of this data might look like. So this shows all of the technologies here. You can see the code. So most of the renewables are down here kind of in the noise, but you see wind is really becoming a significant player in the U.S. power production. So if I combined all of the non-hydro renewables into one line, and now that's this green line. So just in the last 2 years, the non-hydro renewables, dominated mostly by wind and solar in the U.S., have now surpassed hydrogen, hydro, large-scale hydro, in electricity production. But hydro also can be argued to be in the renewable family. So I combined the non-hydro renewables with hydro, and you can see that in 2017, you can see it's on a very steep growth curve, getting close to the nuclear production. Nuclear is about 20% of all power production in the U.S. And so the final curve is, I wondered what it would look like if I included all of the non-carbon electricity generation in the U.S. So I combined that, and you can see that in aggregate, all of the carbon-free electricity generation in the U.S. Surpasses both coal and gas in the amount of electricity produced. So to me, this is a dramatic picture of a changing power system. I mean, we're undergoing the transformation now. It's something that we all worked toward for many years, or some of us did anyway, longer than maybe I want to admit even. But this is a period that we hoped would happen, weren't sure that it would happen in our lifetimes, but it is happening. We're in the midst of the transformation in the U.S. power sector. A little bit about wind and solar deployment specifically. These are annual deployments of solar in the U.S., of solar photovoltaics specifically, broken down into 3 markets: residential, commercial, and utility scale in the dark green. You can see that it too is a very dynamic market. The only bar that is on this chart that is not an annualized number is this first bar, and I'd like to include this just to show how rapidly this is growing. This bar is all of the photovoltaics deployed in the United States prior to 2010 in aggregate. So that's a cumulative bar all the way through 2010. And then this is what's happened in each year since. So we have a cumulative now deployed in the U.S. of 51 gigawatts. This chart is also a testament to the importance of policy. You see this big spike in the year 2016. This was because the federal tax credit for photovoltaic deployment in the U.S. was scheduled to end at the end of 2016. So a lot of projects got in the pipeline. It turned out the tax credit got extended, so it actually reduced the amount deployed in 2016 a little bit, but that's what explains this large spike. And this is in the range of what most analysts were predicting for 2017. Most of this, of course, motivated by this continuous drop in price, which is the price per watt over here for a utility scale system. This is wind. The dark blue bars are cumulative wind deployments, and you can see that in 2017, wind deployments in the U.S. have reached nearly 90,000 megawatts, so a very dynamic market as well. So a little bit now about the electricity markets in the U.S. It's some, I guess, could characterize this as a little bit of a mess. We don't have a single market in the U.S. There are a variety of different approaches to how electricity is generated and delivered to consumers, and how they get charged for that. The areas that are colored in this map are competitive wholesale markets for electricity. So these are areas where there's an actual commercial competitive market for wholesale electricity, The areas that are gray in these areas are typically served by, in some cases, a vertically integrated, regulated utility. I mean, there is certainly, to be sure, regulation applied at the federal level to the competitive markets as well. But one of the messages of this map is that there are a variety of different approaches in the U.S. Wholesale electricity market, in the delivery of electricity in general. These markets came about really to provide the most economically efficient way to generate and deliver electricity, and they've been actually very successful in doing that. We're fortunate in all areas, though, either with the colors or the gray areas, to have a really extraordinarily reliable system. And that's been one of our challenges, and the topic of this discussion here today and tomorrow, by and large, is how do we introduce a lot of clean energy technologies that have operating characteristics different from the conventional generators and keep that reliability. We want to keep this really excellent record of reliability. So these are you saw some of the names of these. They're called independent systems operators or regional transmission operators, ISOs and RTOs for short. Various names: the New England ISO, the New York ISO, the PJM interconnection. You can see most of these are in the east, with the exception of California here, that's in the western interconnection. Just as a quick aside, the U.S. system is broken into three synchronous interconnections. The western interconnection, that is this line over to the west, the eastern interconnection, which is that line to the east, and Texas has its own here, which I usually make jokes about if I'm in the U.S. But this gives you some idea of the characteristics of these different ISOs and RTOs. They each operate, in addition to managing the wholesale electricity markets, these entities are also considered balancing areas. So they have to have the resources available within their geographic footprint to meet the load within that geographic footprint. So these are some of the characteristics. They're big systems, and the eastern interconnection as a whole is one of the largest machines on Earth. It's a very large synchronous grid. In total, though, and the amount of generation represented in wholesale markets is about 655,000 megawatts. So it's a lot of our generation, about 60%, that is provides about 60% of the electricity throughout the U.S. There are almost 6,000 individual generating units in those systems, and about 500,000 kilometers of transmission lines. So very big systems. So a snapshot of the West, because as you saw, the West, by and large, with the exception of California, does not have an organized wholesale electricity market. But that's starting to shift a little bit. These are the balancing areas in the West, kind of a cartoon of those in the West. There are 38 different balancing areas. So really a chopped up system. And as was articulated earlier, you can gain flexibility and a smoothing of variable generator outputs if you have a larger geographic footprint. If you look at just one wind farm, it's, as Dr. Zelius pointed out, it looks like the output is very erratic. If you average that output over a geographically dispersed set of wind farms, it smooths quite a bit. So this is a situation that really is sort of the opposite of the ideal, a bunch of chopped up small footprints. So there has been recently an energy imbalance market that's been introduced in the West, and essentially what that means is that and this is actually managed by the California ISO, these different balancing areas in the West are able to interchange power within that imbalance market, meaning that the term imbalance comes from the fact that they no longer necessarily have to generate all of the electricity that's in their balancing area footprint. They can participate in an imbalanced market with surrounding areas, provided there's sufficient transmission interconnection, which is another issue entirely. So in these wholesale markets, there are really four types of markets. The most common and the only market in a few of the ISO and RTOs are energy markets. They're day-ahead and real-time energy markets. They clear, day-ahead clears on a daily basis. There's a variety of time scales clearing for the real-time markets between 15 minutes and an hour. There are ancillary service markets that, as have been discussed a little bit already, reserve markets, regulation, voltage and support, and black start support. Transmission markets, the ability to own transition assets and have those obligated in the markets. And a growing interest in the U.S. is the addition of capacity markets, and this has been a topic of discussion in the last year and a half or so. The new administration was concerned about the premature retirements of those coal plants and also the retirement of some nuclear plants. It was feared that they were premature, and that was the basis that sort of initiated the discussion. So one of the ways that some of the RTOs and ISOs have begun several years ago now, more than just a year ago, have begun to address this capacity issue is to offer capacity markets so you get paid for the capacity in addition to energy. So the reality is, though, that most of those markets the prices are insufficient to prompt the construction of new capacity, only because our system by and large is over capacity. It's transmission constrained at a number of places, but generating capacity, there's abundant generating capacity, so that keeps the prices in the markets low. Status of storage in the U.S. So we have our system, the total size of the system is about 1,180 gigawatts. So it's a very large system, over a terawatt of generating capacity. And we have a decent amount of storage, and it's sort of an absolute term, but relative to the overall size of the system, it's actually not very much. We have a total of about 24 gigawatts of storage capacity, and that's dominated by and large by pumped hydro storage. That's an older technology. It's been around. The first ones, actually, I saw in the record, there's actually still a pumped hydro station operating that was built in the 1890s in the U.S. So it's an old technology. Most of them have been built since then. And the dark blue dots you can see on this map represent the larger pumped hydro stations. These are thermal storage facilities. The tiny bluer dots are electrochemical. You can see the key over here. And the size of the circle is relative to the size of the capacity of the storage. So here's a build-out over time of storage in the U.S. showing the dominance of pumped hydro. That's the brighter blue bar. You can see the build-out took place mostly since 1950 in the U.S. and has remained relatively flat over a couple of decades. You can see, though, the little bit of an uptick here that is growing is due to additions of thermal storage in this color and electrochemical storage here. Again, though, only about 23 gigawatts, so about 2% of the overall capacity of the system do we have available in storage. But the landscape is definitely beginning to shift. This is a map showing states that have adopted some sort of storage policy, either a mandate, as is the case in California, and you'll hear a lot more about that tomorrow, 1.3 gigawatts of capacity to be mandated. And there's also a mandate in New York. Interesting dynamic between New York and California. They're fairly competitive with each other. So California was the first to adopt the mandate, and then New York adopted, but only a little bit bigger. And then some of these are storage is only required in the integrated resource planning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this system that was referenced earlier in South Australia with a little bit of a personal anecdote. As many of you might have heard, last summer in South Australia, there was a pretty significant blackout. There was a confluence of unfortunate events that caused that. Some people blamed penetrations of wind power, but really the main precipitator was a very large storm that blew over transmission lines and towers. Well, and that spurred a great deal of action in South Australia to keep that from happening again. And one of the things that I went down there to do was to meet with other researchers to talk about some of what we've learned in our power systems research in integrating variable generators like wind and solar. But at the time when I met with representatives from the state of South Australia, this was June of, you can see this is dated July of 2017. I was there in June of 2017, and they said, we're evaluating a bid that we have that is a combination of wind and battery storage for about $45 a megawatt hour. And that was US, that was about 55 Australian at the time. And I thought, I was really floored, actually. I was very surprised. It seemed like an aggressively low price. But I didn't know anything about it at the time because they were still in the process of evaluating bids. They didn't tell me any details. But about a month after I got back, this got announced. And I think this is what they were talking about. It was a 200 megawatt wind farm, 100 megawatt, 129 megawatt hour battery built by Tesla. And then as Mr. Musk is inclined to do, he engages in the dramatic and said they would build it in a very short period of time or it was going to be free. And so they were actually successful at doing that. And 80%, I think, is the right number. It's about 80% round trip efficiency. That's the number we use in most of our analyses that include electrical storage. Not 90. We haven't seen that demonstrated really.
It's just talk.
Yeah, it's a talk, a marketing talk perhaps. But I thought this was dramatic news. I mean, just a couple of years ago, if you had the wind plant only for $45 a megawatt hour, that was going to be a very good price. So this is a market that's changing very rapidly, and this is actually including one extra data point from the graph that Gabrielle showed. Since 2010, lithium-ion technologies have come down about 81%. So it's the only energy technology, in fact, that's dropping in cost faster than photovoltaics. So that leads us to some very recent information. And Gabrielle, actually, I jokingly complained to him in the break that he took some of my data and that I was going to show. But this is from, actually, coincidentally, my home utility. Thank you. My home utility is XL Energy. And they published so this is from December of 2017, this information was made public, and it's really caused quite a stir in among the power systems folks in the U.S. And some of the prices they got for wind and solar alone, but also wind and solar battery hybrid systems, is nothing short of very dramatic. So there's a lot of numbers on here, so I've circled a few. This is their wind bids here. They got 96 wind bids with the median bid of $18.10 a megawatt hour. So that means there's 40-some a little bit higher than that and 40-some even lower than that. So this is a very aggressive price, but I have to hasten to add, this does have the federal production tax credit represented in that number. So when they make that bid, they make the bid recognizing that they're going to get that production tax credit from the federal government. And then, I went too fast. Hold on. There are wind and solar hybrid systems for also a very aggressive price. And then here's wind with battery storage. Only $21 a megawatt hour. There's another qualification that I need to make here, though, and that is in the bid information that was published by Excel, what we don't know about these hybrid systems is what the size, what the capacity of the battery is, or what the discharge time is of those batteries. So that'll be information still to come. The photovoltaic price, $29.50 a megawatt hour, over 152 bids. So these are definitely prices that you cannot beat with any other technology, with natural gas or coal or nuclear. And so this is, again, just representative of a rapidly changing landscape. Wind and solar with batteries, and finally PV with batteries at $36 a megawatt hour. Still actually quite competitive with a natural gas plant. So I wanted to present, I don't have that much time, so I'm not going to spend very much time on this. You can take the time if you'd like and look at it later. But there are many different possible applications across a lot of different technologies for storage to the grid. And usually we think about them in terms of storage capacity and the ability to discharge over different time periods. And this has been shown effectively in a couple of different presentations already. But it's important to recognize that storage covers a lot of space. Battery, most of our storage, as I already showed, is up here. Large capacity, long discharge pumped hydro storage. Batteries cover the most sort of landscape here. There's such a breadth of different electrochemical type technologies that the applicability to grid applications is very broad. But I want to go on to talk about some work that we published just last week. There's in California, to get full capacity credit for storage, the storage facility has to be able to discharge for 4 hours at its rated capacity. So if you want full capacity credit in the market in California, you have to discharge for 4 hours. So we started to wonder how much, given the peak day in California load data, which we have represented here. This is actual. The blue line is actual load data from a September day in 2011, where the California peak was over 50 gigawatts. We wondered how much we incrementally added units of storage until you could no longer reduce the peak over that 4-hour period. So we determined that you could add about 4,300 megawatts of storage and still have all of that storage get 100% capacity credit. So what we were doing here is trying to explore where are there markets for storage that might not be currently monetized in the markets, and where what are the limits, recognizing that if we added a unit of storage beyond this 4,300 megawatts, then the duration of the storage would exceed 4 hours, and so it's a diminishing return on your investment. But what we also recognized is that with increasing photovoltaics, which is happening in the California system, the shape of the curve determines this value here. It determines how long 4 hours last in the peak and how much you can reduce that peak over that 4-hour period. But as you add more and more photovoltaics, the infamous duck curve emerges. This bottom curve is a modeled load curve with 20% photovoltaic penetration in the California system. So what increasing photovoltaics does is that it makes what we call, there's got to be a better term we can come up with, but it makes the peak peakier. It narrows the peak and makes the ramps up to the peak and down from the peak much steeper. And so we recognize that the interplay between photovoltaics and storage would impact how much storage you could put on the system and under the 4-hour rule and still get 100% capacity credit for your storage deployed. So I'll just click through these very quickly. Interestingly, as it turns out, because small penetrations of photovoltaic photovoltaics tends to broaden the curve. It actually reduces the amount of storage you can put on the system and still get 100% credit under the 4-hour rule. So so this is the zero photovoltaic modeled case. That's not the case in California. They have actually close to 11% penetration now. So at 5%, you see the amount drops to 2,000 megawatts. So it actually goes down. But as you start adding more, and the peak gets peakier, all the way up to 20%. The 4-hour duration of this peak means that you can put over 10,000 megawatts of storage on the system. So I wanted to share this as some of the thinking that we're doing, trying to identify where there are sort of quantifiable markets that could be valued in the systems in the U.S. And we tend to work a lot with California data because they're being very progressive in all things renewable and storage. So that paper, as I said, was just published last week. Now it's available. You can get it on our website and learn a little bit more about the methodologies that I didn't have time to go into today. So the last couple of slides that I have are this notion of using advanced power electronics functionality to provide stability and ancillary services to the grid in the absence of storage. I very much agree with Richard that I think in the end, this is going to be an all-of-the-above solution set. There's going to be a lot of different technologies, and controls are going to become the most important aspect of coordinating the variety of technologies that we'll have on the system. But to look at this problem, could we use a photovoltaic plant? And this one happens to be located in the desert in California, a 300 megawatt plant, so a really big plant. Could we use that from the control room from the control room in Arizona? The first solar photovoltaic company is built and operates the system to provide ancillary services. So here's the system as it's configured. They're cadmium telluride thin film modules. It's like I said, a very large array. The inverters are 4 megawatt inverters. There are nine blocks that make up the PV array. So each of these inverters is controllable. There are advanced. An interesting thing about most inverters today, utility scales inverters, is that they have this advanced functionality already built in. Sometimes all it takes is some firmware changes in the inverter itself. What we learned in this exercise that it takes additional advanced communication to avoid latency in communicating between the operating the control room and the inverters themselves. But most of this functionality already exists in utility scale inverters. So what we wanted to do, we set up a series of tests with California ISO and First Solar. We wanted to learn about the possibilities for regulation up and regulation down, and frequency response, voltage support, voltage control, things of that nature. I won't go through the full list, and I will just go to some of the results. I'll take a minute to just step through what these charts are showing. The green line at the top in both, and we did this in the 3 different kinds of conditions you see with a photovoltaic plant: morning, midday, and so morning when there's the ramp up, midday when they're somewhat stable, and the evening when there's the ramp down. This shows the morning and the midday data. So the green line at the top is what was predicted to be the maximum output of the plant. So from the control room in Arizona, they dialed the output of the plant back. They took the inverters off the max power point tracking and operated the plant with 30 megawatts of headroom. And from that point then, they sent a variety of signals to see if they could use that 30 megawatts of headroom to provide up and down frequency regulation. And so we did that both, as I said, in those 3 cases. It's shown here. The red line that you can see sort of underneath here is what was the command signal. That's what we wanted the output to be, and the yellow line is the actual output. So this actually turned out to be a very successful tests that we did that demonstrated that you can use photovoltaics in the absence of battery to provide stability to the grid. We were successful in that whole litany of tests, in fact, and just for time's sake, and because some of them I quite honestly struggle to understand, much less articulate, because it's I'm a physicist, not an electrical engineer, right? But we were able to demonstrate them all successfully. So this was an exciting development, and I'll leave with this chart showing the accuracy of measured upregulation. This is the PV plant without any storage. The accuracy of the plant, because of the very high level of responsiveness of advanced power electronics, the accuracy was in these levels here. At sunrise, almost 94% and 87% the rest of the time. Conventional upregulation technologies are shown here, and you can see that they're much less responsive. So not only is it possible to do with photovoltaics and advanced inverter functionality to provide stability and other ancillary services, it's actually really superior to some other approaches. It's as Dr. Sauer said to start the morning, and it's really the basis of much of our research, is that flexibility is the key to integrating wind and solar into the power system, but there are many sources that exist already, and many that we're only just learning about. They don't all include storage. There are many other things, but the key for us is to find flexibility that exists in the system at the lowest cost. So that's how we're going to get more and more wind and solar into the system. That's what motivates us, and as it has always been, it's really a great pleasure for me to be able to come here and talk about that a little bit. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Moni. Bom, tem uma pergunta. Acho que a gente tem algum tempo, né, para perguntas da plateia e comentários. Hã? Como? Então, por favor, gostaria de chamar os apresentadores, né, dessa manhã, né? O Gabriel, o professor Ziles, o professor Hildo.
Tem espaço para todos? I hope so.
Olá. Olá? Você escuta? Sim? Tá, bom dia. Eu sou Cíntia Guerreiro, da Universidade Tecnológica de Brandemburgo. E eu gostaria de ter uma pergunta para o senhor Richard Phillips.
Okay.
Maybe I should state the question in English.
Espero eu entendi.
So my question is that in Germany, most of the research done with flow batteries is always with vanadium. I don't know the difference or the advantage of doing flow batteries with iron instead of vanadium.
Sure. The first, okay. The principal advantage is the cost of the chemicals. The second, so vanadium is very expensive, on the order of 10 times the cost of iron. I mean, in terms of earth abundancy and cost of mining. So also turns out the largest vanadium reserves in the world are in China. They're not in other parts of the world. So it's not surprising, perhaps, that the Chinese would choose a flow battery technology that uses an asset they have. Okay, so that's the first. Second effect is the hazards of the chemical. Vanadium is poisonous, and therefore the cost of disposing of it is an issue. It was simply the first, so it was the earliest chemistry that was more widely popularized. So there are frankly, zinc flow batteries. There are our iron salt water flow battery. They tended, in our case, they came out of the U.S. university system. So our technology was developed for 20 years by Case Western University in Cleveland, Ohio. Other saltwater batteries, loosely determined, not exactly our chemistry, came out of Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, for example. So a lot of it has to do with research that started from the universities in Germany or the universities in the U.S. That's principally where all of the various chemistries have come from, and I would argue continue to come from. Other parts of the world are pretty good at copying things, but they're not so good at inventing things. I mean, I'm showing my bias. Forgive me. But that's really where the origination is. The U.S. universities and Germany. They've spent more money. They've put in more hours to discover, and they're still doing it. By the way, I don't want to imply that there's somehow a point at which they still believe there will be breakthroughs in alternative chemistries that will advance the state of the art, if you will, of energy storage. Does that answer your question? So it was just first, basically. And
okay, thank you. Mais alguém teria algum comentário?
Hi, my name is Mauricio Salles, professor from the University of São Paulo. So my question for David and Rao. So I saw you showed the frequency regulation with solar, and I was wondering if the signal that you sent to the utility is, or the utility sent to the power plant is more or less like the already are doing in PJM, sending signals to the battery to follow the frequency regulation.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I wasn't present at the test itself, but it had the participation of operators from the California ISO, and so they structured it to mimic the signals that the California ISO would send. So yes, it very much the same.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Gerhard from Electrocell. I know that in hydrogen we have some target. DOE had some target for the price and efficient of the fuel cell. There is any target for the lithium batteries or different kind of batteries, flow batteries?
As good as it can be. make it better and better. But fundamentally, the only thing I would say is it's important to understand how life affects the round trip efficiency, duty cycle affects the round trip efficiency, and essentially the type of cycling you do. So it's an ever complex problem, but you need to pay attention. I consider it one of the most essential aspects of a long-term capital asset management. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a very short life battery, basically. Okay?
I don't believe, though, that the U.S. Department of Energy at this point has established performance or cost targets or reliability targets for batteries, for electrochemical batteries, at least not that I'm aware of.
You would know.
Okay, thank you.
Second question could be, I heard in the news that FERC is also, put a new law that allows the battery owners to participate in the electricity market in the wholesale electricity market in the U.S. So this, I think, is a good news for the whole bunch of companies that are working in this area. So do you have any comments about this new law?
Yeah, this was a recent ruling from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for the FERC in the U.S., which is, I think, the closest parallel here is ANEEL. The very important ruling, you're right, very exciting ruling that storage, very surprisingly, really, up until only recently, could not participate in most markets. There was a lot of dispute about whether to treat it as a load or a generator, for example, and that kept participation in markets at a minimum. But the FERC issued a ruling allowing storage to participate as a generator in wholesale markets. So it's potentially is going to have a significant impact on the ability for developers to include storage in their projects and to monetize the value. To me, that's been one of the barriers to greater commercialization of storage broadly, is that as you saw in that one chart with all of those blue and green bubbles, there are many applications, but very few that you can actually monetize in the power system. So this FERC ruling is a step toward the monetization of more of the value streams that storage offers.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Oh, I have the microphone here. Is on?
Yes.
Yes, recently I was at the MIT Energy Conference, and some of the speakers were quoting the prices of solar cells at less than $1 per kilowatt hour. And I relate this to some graph that was showing that some customers are planning to have totally independent supply themselves, not connected to the power grid. And also at less than $1 the kilowatt hour, the utilities will have a problem in meeting this kind of prices to supply, even at emergency state. So I see that the utilities must be very concerned with this status of affairs, because they'll be running out of business sometimes. But I wonder, on the other hand, how people can be independent and have safety of supply. They cannot. I wonder if they are aware of the risk to be independent related to this, the lack of a power grid to supply them at emergencies or whatever. So I wanted the panel to tell me what to do.
I want to be the only one to speak.
May I answer in Portuguese? Yeah. Então, na verdade, o preço não das células está abaixo de $1, mas sim do sistema todo já se encontra abaixo de $1. E você tem razão de que é muito difícil conseguir o mesmo serviço com o sistema autônomo que a rede proporciona a um baixo custo. Na verdade, se você quiser ter a mesma confiabilidade que a rede proporciona para esse consumidor, você vai ter que sobredimensionar o seu sistema de geração e de bateria para também ter 99,90% de confiabilidade. Então, economicamente, talvez seja realmente um pouco mais mais caro do que se imagina. Esse valor de $1 por kilowatt por watt instalado, ele é só do sistema fotovoltaico. Aí você tem que botar a bateria, mas também você vai ter que colocar mais baterias do que se imagina. E como a gente está vendo, por mais que o preço do sistema fotovoltaico está caindo, ele está caindo para todo mundo. Então, o preço da eletricidade na tarifa final pode ficar mais barato também para esse consumidor, uma vez que você está comprando uma geração centralizada a um valor também bem baixo, na faixa de $20, $30 o megawatt-hora. Então, é um páreo duro também para competindo. E, como eu disse na minha apresentação, é difícil de a gente prever todas essas nuances, se vai acontecer ou não. O que a gente precisa é colocar um modelo que não sobrecarregue nenhum consumidor, e aí se o consumidor vê a oportunidade de colocar um sistema autônomo na casa dele, e isso não vai onerar um outro consumidor, digamos assim, então é possível que ele tome essa decisão.
I would just add a little something about the price, is that that dollar a watt price is typically for utility scale, very large scale systems, not the residential system that somebody may consider to defect from the grid, as we often characterize it, as grid defectors. So those prices are higher. I would say that in the one chart that I showed that showed the photovoltaic deployment in the U.S. versus price, that 2017 price point was about $1.14, but that is sort of an average price in the U.S. We did see a number of systems go in the U.S. for under $1 a watt, and it's really a very remarkable past 5 years in the photovoltaic business. You can buy panels, for example. The average panel price in the U.S. Last year for large-scale buyers was only around 39 cents a watt. And when I first started doing photovoltaic research, our long-term sort of hope we can get there someday target was 50 cents a watt, and we're below that now, and it's very exciting.
Érico Ebelin, Clabin. Esse mês a Santa Catarina, né, lançou um programa de eletrificação solar incentivado pelo governo para residências e pequenas indústrias. Talvez o professor Hildo, né, ajudar a responder no sentido de haverá uma legislação ou cada estado irá apoiar os seus programas ou haverá alguma atividade para regulamentar, ou corre o risco de investir em Santa Catarina e uma legislação nacional obrigar a gente a fazer novos investimentos para adequar a uma legislação que possa ser implantada? Como o senhor vê isso?
Eu vou dar a minha opinião, depois eu vou pedir ajuda aos universitários, professores Zilas, que têm trabalhado mais com isso do que eu, e o Gabriel, que está lá na IPE planejando. Veja, alguns estados têm buscado especificamente programas de incentivo para as renováveis, e Santa Catarina, um exemplo. Inclusive, Santa Catarina também tem um programa muito importante na área de biogás, de apoio do biogás. São Paulo também agora regulamentou a possibilidade, ou, aliás, a obrigação das empresas de gás e as redes de gás estarem abertas para receber de 0,5% a 2% de biometano, como gás natural. O preço é um pouco maior e tal. Na área federal, nós temos visto esse programa Renova Bio, tem algumas dúvidas sobre aquilo. O debate sempre é sobre o custo imediato vis-à-vis o ganho de escala e ganho de aprendizado de longo prazo para reduzi-lo. Por exemplo, no caso do biometano, a única entidade que integra o Conselho Estadual de Política Energética que se opôs a isso foi a Fiesp, por razões muito compreensíveis. E é uma posição respeitável. Então, de qualquer maneira, é isso. Eu acho que a tendência... Eu disse isso antes. Acho que o Brasil precisa rever urgentemente o seu modelo regulatório do sistema elétrico como um todo. O cérebro da operação nacional ainda é o programa New Wave, que tem uma longa tradição de como lidar com a estocasticidade da hidrologia, mas a forma como ele resolveu isto até hoje me parece inadequada. Só que nós temos hoje... Eu participei daquela audiência pública que o Gabriel se referiu e manifestei minha opinião contrária ao que o governo quer fazer hoje ao criar 3 produtos, além da energia, esqueci a segunda palavra, como é que é?
Capacidade, lastro.
Lastro e serviços ancilares. Como normalmente quem provê esses 3 produtos, muitas vezes é uma mesma máquina, uma mesma usina, separar vai funcionar. Só que quanto mais mercados competitivos nós criarmos para diferentes produtos, maior a tendência é de criarmos mercados que vão se aproximar dos custos marginais, e a tendência é que cada ofertante vai tratar de minimizar seus riscos, como ele tem que fazer, se ele é um empreendedor, e daí a tendência é repassar esse risco aos preços. Então a população vai pagando. Quando o risco não acontece, ele ganha um prêmio. Quando o risco acontece, ele está protegido. E como muitos desses riscos no sistema hidráulico brasileiro ainda são compensados de um para o outro, até pela hidrologia, pelos comportamentos, eu acho que nós precisamos repensar, sim, o modelo elétrico para introduzir essas novas questões, mas ele tem que ser melhor pensado. Não acho, eu já disse isso no seminário anterior aqui, que no fim de um governo, ainda mais este, que tem uma extrema impopularidade, mais de 90% rejeitam este governo, eu acho que não é nem esse Ministério de Minas e Energia, nem este governo, que deveria dar um passo tão longo, agora assodado e apressadamente, como ele quer dar. Eu acho que o assunto está na ordem do dia, precisa ser repensado no plano federal, e daí sim proteger também as políticas estaduais. Tá? Precisamos buscar uma nova conciliação, mas com um debate mais amplo, e evidentemente que a proposta que está no governo hoje, na audiência pública, tem um mérito, que é voltar a centralizar as compras. No restante, eu me opus a tudo que eles querem fazer lá, pelo que eu expus aqui agora. Mas eu acho que é um debate que tem que ser levado muito mais profundamente a todos os campos da sociedade, para que a gente não faça mais uma aventura. O Brasil tem nas últimas 2, desde 1995, portanto já há 30 anos, né? Que nós estamos reformando. As tarifas só têm aumentado, o risco de não suprimento, mesmo em 2 anos de recessão seguidos, continua no ar. Nós temos uma energia muito mais cara, as tarifas só aumentaram, acima da inflação, desde as reformas, a promessa era ao contrário. Eu acho que está na hora de repensar e aprender com o que os outros fizeram, ser menos enviesado em favor de lobbies que têm pressionado dentro do governo em favor dos seus interesses. E a população e a sociedade mais ampla tem ficado desprotegida. Essa é a minha preocupação. Eu sei que o Osíris quer falar.
Bom, você falou do incentivo de um Estado no caso solar, né? Você está falando. Bom, primeiro você também falou de legislação. Primeiro, vamos ver, há uma regulamentação que em particular, ela cria um incentivo muito grande para o solar distribuído. Porque hoje está permitido você instalar, independente do Estado, depois a gente vai trocar no caso que você falou do incentivo de Santa Catarina, que é uma coisa do Estado, mas ela já possibilita você trabalhar em paralelo com a rede e você não tem esse custo de armazenamento, que na pergunta que foi lá, custa não é $1 por watt ou $1.000 por quilowatt instalado. Você está transferindo esse custo de armazenar para a sociedade, para todos os consumidores de eletricidade, e tem que chamar para essa mesa, antes de criar um outro incentivo maior, quem hoje cuida da rede de distribuição. Né? Então, quando um Estado cria um incentivo, as razões que estão por trás não tem nada a ver com o setor elétrico, nada, é por uma questão de uma política pública que quer ter no seu Estado mais energia solar, e, por outro lado, deve botar uma condição que o CNPJ de quem instala ou quem fabrica está no Estado. Mas eu acho que, em termos de incentivo, né, eu estou convicto de incentivo que o Brasil hoje tem, através da regulamentação da micro e mini geração, ela é muito favorável, né, e quem quer fazer, que aproveite antes de 2018, 2019, depois vai ter uma revisão, e esse custo de armazenagem vai ter que ser considerado até para ter incentivo da entrada das novas tecnologias, que é o consumidor também ter um pequeno armazenamento.
Eu gostaria só de acrescentar que, como o Zilis falou, hoje a gente tem uma regulação nacional que é muito atrativa. Aliás, olhando o mundo todo, hoje a gente tem uns modelos regulatórios combinado com o tarifário que proporciona uma das maiores atratividades para o consumidor, assim, porque a gente tem altas tarifas, a cobrança é volumétrica e o modelo de net metering permite compensar 100%, não paga nenhuma taxa por isso. Então, uma regulação nacional já é muito atrativa para a geração distribuída. E dois, nada impede que os estados incentivem mais da maneira que eles acharem prudente. A gente tem exemplos como esse de Santa Catarina, tem exemplo de Goiás, por exemplo, que fizeram um programa de habitação social lá e linhas de crédito também para alguns setores. Eu anotei aqui também Minas Gerais, eles também foram precursores em isentar o ICMS da compensação de energia, depois outros estados vieram a reboque. E não necessariamente na geração distribuída, mas também teve em Pernambuco, que fez o primeiro leilão de geração centralizada para a energia solar. Eles compraram projetos lá. Então, nada impede que os estados adotem suas políticas estaduais para incentivar, se acharem assim necessários.
Eu só, para fechar, chamo a atenção de uma coisa que ele ressaltou. Um grande incentivo para que essas fontes possam existir é exatamente o fato de que as tarifas estão extremamente elevadas. O Brasil, dotado de provavelmente o melhor conjunto de recursos naturais, hidráulico, eólico, fotovoltaico e base térmica, podia ter uma das tarifas mais baixas do mundo e está entre os 5 mais caros do mundo, o que mostra que as reformas e as mudanças que nós fizemos nas últimas 3 décadas não deram a resposta que foi prometida. Por isso, acho que nós temos que... Mas, ao mesmo tempo, um mal muito grande permite um benefício pequeno, que é o incentivo a que e com o net metering, que a fotovoltaica e as outras fontes possam penetrar. Moreira aqui.
Senhor Moreira.
Há algum microfone aqui para... O próximo que vai falar já podia levantar a mão, né, Édio? Que aí a gente já leva o microfone.
Bom, são 2 comentários, um em português, o outro fala em inglês. O em português é com respeito a essa última assertiva do professor Hildo, né, de que as tarifas são as mais caras do mundo. Eu gostaria de lembrar, recentemente eu vi uma declaração do presidente do Banco Central dizendo que, infelizmente, não eram só os juros bancários que eram mais caros no Brasil do que no mundo. Tudo no Brasil é mais caro que no mundo. Tá? Isso é uma afirmação. O segundo é regarding the prices I saw for PV. I was extremely impressed seeing prices as $18-20 per megawatt hour. Per megawatt hour. I remember, and probably all of you should remember, in the early 50s, when nuclear energy has made its starting, there was a sentence widely used that, it's so cheap that it's worthwhile to charge. So I would like to understand if really we can say the same thing, or there is any risk that we are going to the same mistake, or in the other way, can we say we are looking this time, not that the sky is the limit, but look like that the floor is the limit with this price. Shall we expect some low value limit? There is a low value limit probably imposed by the material cost, or imposed even for defense, as has been stated a long time ago. Does this price include defense? So can you say something about that, please?
No, I am happy to. The phrase in the U.S. regarding nuclear power was too cheap to meter. It was going to be too cheap to meter. And so we saw that actually that did not come to pass. You're correct in your observation. So the question of whether we may be at a similar point with wind and solar is My reaction is that I think we are more in a situation where the floor is the limit. Because of the one of the things, among a number of things that caused the change in views and deployment of nuclear energy in the U.S. was just the risk profile. The safety measures and the engineering required to build these large, we've got 101 operating nuclear plants in the U.S. They average nearly a gigawatt. Anymore, any new construction seems never to come in on budget. Conversely, with wind and solar, the resources are ubiquitous. My former director at the laboratory used to say wind and solar are the no regrets option, and so the risk profile and the perceived risk of deploying this technology in large numbers, as contrasted with deploying nuclear in large numbers, the perceived risk is very, very low. And if you couple the ubiquitous nature of the resources with what is the urgency of climate change among most of the population of the world, I think that we're going to see continued impressive growth.
Okay. Thank you. Mais alguém?
Tem dois aqui. Negro.
Do you think hydrogen will have a place in storage in the next 100 years, 100 years, for instance, or faster?
It's one part I regret a little bit after seeing Professor Sauer's presentation that I did not include a couple of slides on hydrogen. I think it will have a place. There's such flexibility in hydrogen as an energy carrier, multiple pathways to make hydrogen, multiple pathways to use hydrogen in transportation and electric power production. So this is I will be honest, this is a change in my position from the answer I might have given 7 or 8 years ago. I didn't think that there was necessarily going to be a place for hydrogen because of the challenges of infrastructure needed to distribute it. But the U.S. Department of Energy has recently started an initiative called Hydrogen at Scale, and so there's a significant investment underway to do the research and development necessary to get these different production and utilization pathways more reliable, more cost-effective, better technical performance, better round-trip efficiencies of generating hydrogen. So I think I think there's definitely promise there.
I may add to it that this afternoon we will have a special session on electrochemical storage. However, tomorrow morning we will have a special session on hydrogen storage. E eu também vou aproveitar para está aqui o representante do Ministério de Ciência e Tecnologia, que gentilmente veio participar do seminário, e ele nos entregou aqui o convite, que está lá disponível lá fora, ele pode acrescentar, para o 22º Congresso Mundial, a Conferência Mundial de Hidrogênio, que vai ser realizado no Rio de Janeiro em 17 a 22 de junho de 2018. Então, você pode continuar comercial.
Sim, obrigado.
E o seu nome, por favor.
Sim, Dante Holanda, Ministério de Ciência, Tecnologia, Inovações e Comunicações. Vim aqui trazer, né, esse convite para a Conferência Mundial de Energia do Hidrogênio. Vai acontecer no Rio de Janeiro. O professor Hildo recebeu ali os folders, então está à disposição lá fora. Eu peguei alguns que tem lá, a gente tem mais deles. Maiores informações estão lá. E a gente lá do Ministério está apoiando diretamente desde 2017. né, essa conferência que é bianual, já é a 22ª edição, já tem 12 países confirmados, é um evento assim de 1.000 pessoas. E eu estou aqui com o vice-presidente, o Guerra, né, do evento, então tem informações aqui à vontade. Já recebemos um quarto, né, dos artigos é hidrogênio a partir de biomassa. Né, a gente vê a reforma de etanol, tem muita coisa sendo trabalhada aqui no Brasil com a biomassa. Já que eu peguei aqui os comentários, né, eu vou querer parabenizar a organização do evento. O professor Hildo, na apresentação dele, falou ali dos dados de junho de 2017, e a gente tinha na época 150 gigawatt instalado. Hoje a gente tem quase 170 giga. Então aquele dado, né, aquela informação que o Gabriel falou, que a gente tem que crescer 10 a 15 gigawatt por ano, a gente está cumprindo nosso papel, né? E bom, é isso que eu queria comentar. Parabéns a todos e obrigado pela oportunidade.
Obrigado.
Se não tiver mais ninguém, if there's nobody else, tem alguém aí. Depois, we are a little bit ahead of schedule because our independent time operators curtailed some of your time here. And then I can ask Philip and yourself if you have, after the questions, you may finish your presentation, Philip.
Okay, and regarding the presentation of David, Gabriel showed us, I don't know if it was Gabriel, it's Hildo, but showed us the strategies to load management in order to shift the peak. And I would like to ask you how the laboratory are studying the EV's penetration in this peak shifting, and how works in the US for the big consumers this kind of load management. It's like a virtual thermal plant.
If I understand the question right, so please tell me if I'm not responding appropriately. But there are limited markets in the U.S. for demand side management. There are some RSO and ITOs that have demand response in the market, but typically those are large industrial type customers. The technology exists, and one of the things that we're working on experimentally to demonstrate technically anyway in the laboratory is how you might aggregate a number of smart appliances, say, in the distribution system to be able to offer that kind of demand response in a real-time fashion into the market. And how does so the technology exists, we're demonstrating to be able to do that, but there's currently not a mechanism in the market to monetize that. So there's no way to pay consumers who might be willing to cycle their air conditioners, for example, in times of high demand.
And about the EV's penetration in the market, David.
I'm sorry? I wasn't tracking where the question was coming from. Oh, okay.
No, and about the electric vehicles penetration.
Electric vehicles penetration.
Oh, electric vehicle penetration. Yes, sorry, I was having trouble understanding. So this, to me, is one of the more fascinating things that is emerging as a potentially a major player. Not only vehicle electrification, and utilities in the U.S. are looking to vehicle electrification as a new revenue source. As more and more people add photovoltaics, that's because most sales, the business models for utilities in the U.S. are volumetric sales. The sell of kilowatt hours is how they make their money. With more people adding photovoltaics, their sale goes down, so they see electric vehicles as a new revenue source to make up for that. And I think they're right in looking at that. There's increasing penetration of electric vehicles in the U.S., Still very small, but clearly a growing market, a rapidly growing market. But what we're looking at in the laboratory, but what is not yet implemented in practice in the utility sector in the U.S. is how do you take advantage of the value that a plugged-in vehicle can offer the grid. So grid to vehicle is the easy part. You sell electricity to charge the batteries. Being able to use that large variety of potential services from a battery that's connected to the grid is another matter. We're demonstrating in a laboratory environment how to manage that kind of distribution system technically, but there's still no markets to monetize those kinds of transactions. So we have a long way to go. I feel like the technology at this particular point in time is far outpacing the regulatory and market frameworks that will encourage the adoption of this technology.
Ok, thank you.
Quer acrescentar?
Fala pouco mais. I was thinking that there were a couple of things I didn't get to say that I would like to at least put forth to the group, to Gabriel, for example. Regulatory stability here in Brazil, the ability for investors to look at this market and say, I'm going to invest. There's two questions that come to mind, I believe, the world over. So this isn't unique to Brazil, but Brazil's challenges in this environment are significant. The first is bankable finance. And bankable finance comes from a reliable understanding of the risks, right? Risk adjustment, risk-adjusted finance. So here in Brazil, what we don't have is a fully transparent market, and we don't have a very long view of regulations. For example, the Enel net metering laws, I agree, are amazing and potentially wonderful, and today they will be revisited in 2019, in March of 2019, with some degree of uncertainty. But we basically need to align generation peaks with demand peaks. So there's got to be a clear way of signaling back to both the generators and the users of energy what I call positive behavior. And there's no doubt the world over that this comes through time of use generation incentives and time of use demand incentives. So that if you're going to demand to use a lot of energy at a certain hour of the day when it's extremely expensive for the grid to produce the energy instantaneously at that time, you need to get a signal that this energy is expensive. It's more expensive than normal. Without, please don't hear any of my comment. I'm a Brazilian now. Eu sou brasileiro agora, certo? Não tenho a menor dúvida disso. But through, in English, we would call it the unintended consequences of certain laws that are well intended. They're intended for the benefit of the Brazilian people. I'll use a couple examples, not again, but just to bring home my point, because I think these things exist broadly. On the island of Fernando de Noronha, a year ago, we were at a conference in Recife, and we met with the grid operator, and their demand is increasing 50%. I don't know. It's going away or coming back. 50% every 4 years. There's no place on earth where demand, practically, or no place on earth, where demand is increasing by 50%. Now, why is that? Of course, it's a patrimonial, the Brazil. It's a very well protected, but there's no incentive to conserve energy because they pay the same price for energy there that we all pay. And so as a result, they're not getting the signal. There isn't a built-in signal that stimulates energy efficiency, and so instead, you've got a grid operator that's literally trying to figure out how to build 50% more generation capacity into a location that's fragile, highly limited in terms of space, I mean, these are sort of unrealistic, unintended consequences. But they're the kind of thing I'm talking about. So regulation, I have one more kind of sort of pet peeve, and I don't know whether this is, I hope it's not going to create a stir, but demand charge management. So from what I can observe, and I want to say that this is just my casual observation of the Brazilian system, you don't use, demand charges are very critical. In the United States, a demand charge signal says you want more energy, you want more infrastructure, you need to pay for it. And if I'm a grid operator and I've got to deliver this peak, even if it's only 1 day a month, you've got to pay for that infrastructure, right? I mean, it seems so correct to me. Here, I don't witness that. The demand charge management and the demand charge as a component of the bill are so small that people essentially ignore it. And I just don't think that's right. So what you've got is your federal auction market is, and Gabrielle talked about this, they're going to switch to an hourly. So there are incentives, and there is a feedback mechanism for generating more energy at the time you need it. And then you need to send the same kind of signal to the consumers to stimulate appropriate behavior when they're using highly expensive energy. And then, of course, ideally a transparency and a stability in those regulations so that bankable finance becomes available. For example, and I'm somewhat of a finance guy. I'm a chemical engineer, but the risk-adjusted reward that's required here in Brazil is 3 to 4 times that in the United States. So a typical discount factor in a financial equation here is 10 to 12%, where the same exact example in the United States would be 2 or 3%. And then you start talking about juros, or interest rates for borrowing, and of course that's a drag. So you put those two factors together with an uncertainty around the regulations, and it's a hurdle that almost can't be overcome. I know it can, by the way, and I'm here to stay. So my desire is only to make this country and my home a better place. So that's the end. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Well, Gabriel gostaria de...
Eu gostaria de adicionar, eu acho que o Richard já falou muita coisa do que eu gostaria aqui, dessa questão de alocação certa de riscos. É algo que esse modelo que foi proposto tá buscando, essa melhor alocação de riscos entre gerador e consumidor, e também a maior estabilidade regulatória. O Hildo comentou sobre as tarifas elevadas e, infelizmente, no modelo econômico que a gente vive, a gente é refém, digamos assim, dessa relação risco-retorno. Então, não é porque a gente tem os melhores recursos energéticos que necessariamente a gente vai ter a menor tarifa. Aliás, se a gente for olhar a mundo afora, com certeza isso não deve ser a realidade. A gente depende, sim, dessa questão dos juros, por exemplo, da relação risco-retorno, e os juros é uma forma de transparecer isso. E outra decisão que a gente tomou, que explicam também as tarifas mais altas no Brasil, são os encargos. Então, por exemplo, a gente tem encargo para subsidiar o carvão nacional, lá no Sul. A gente tem encargo para o Luz para Todos. Não estou falando que é ruim, mas foi uma decisão que a gente tomou de universalizar o acesso à energia elétrica. Então, os outros consumidores estão pagando. A mesma coisa os sistemas isolados. A gente paga pelo diesel que é gerado na região norte, principalmente nos sistemas isolados. Isso é caro. E deixa eu ver se eu falei. E também para as próprias renováveis. A gente tem desconto na TUSD para eólica, para solar, para as outras fontes renováveis. Então, isso foi uma opção que a gente adotou, e a gente está pagando esses encargos que foram uma escolha. Isso encarece a tarifa. E quanto ao risco, lembrar que a gente estava com a taxa de juros de 14% e 25%, e ultimamente a gente está agora a 6,75%, ia ter uma reunião do Copom, não sei se é hoje, amanhã, alguma coisa assim. E nesse último governo, quando o empreendedor visualizou um menor risco no mercado, a gente viu os leilões de transmissão e leilão de geração com grande deságio. Então, é uma forma de mostrar esse entendimento do investidor. Naquela época conturbada, antes da Dilma sair, foram feitos alguns leilões de transmissão e se entendia que era um risco muito grande. E naqueles leilões de transmissão, a maioria deles saíram vazios, não conseguiram ser leiloados aqueles projetos. E passado esse período, estou falando que foi bom ou ruim, mas sob a perspectiva de risco do empreendedor, a gente viu os projetos saindo com grande deságio. Então, felizmente ou felizmente, isso que acontece, mas eu só estou querendo explicar um pouco, eu acho que o Richard aqui já explicou também bem, essa necessidade de ter uma estabilidade regulatória, menor risco para o investidor, e com isso a gente vai estar tendo possivelmente uma tarifa mais baixa. E, já que o Hildo comentou, da consulta pública, é um modelo que está tentando trazer isso, essa maior estabilidade regulatória e alocação correta de riscos entre gerador e consumidor.
Bom, eu não ia polemizar, mas eu entendo que não é hora de debater isso aqui. Quem viu a consulta, separar 3 produtos com 3 mercados diferentes, cada investidor protegendo do seu risco. O sistema brasileiro continua sendo um grande monopólio natural. Ele é operado cooperativamente. Fazer preços e competição, onde um dos principais fatores é aleatório, baseado na hidrologia e na eologia, gera uma especulação que grande parte dos custos e riscos estão associados ao fato de a gente não levar em conta adequadamente o comportamento da hidrologia e da eologia como algo que é melhor que a população como um todo assuma esse risco e pague pelo combustível. Nós temos distorções, sim. A CCC continua sendo um péssimo incentivo, porque enquanto a gente continuar subsidiando o diesel, as renováveis, há uma infinidade de opções para atender os sistemas isolados. Os governos dos estados da região norte não querem abrir mão do diesel, porque eles, além de receberem mais ou menos, muitas vezes, 2/3 ou até 3/5 do diesel pago por todos nós, eles cobrem ICMS sobre isso. São distorções enormes. Isso tudo existe. Mas o modelo conceitual do sistema elétrico brasileiro precisa ser revisto, levando em conta as peculiaridades nossas da hidrologia e da eologia e de como os riscos globais... O grande risco, no fundo, é a demanda de energia elétrica, que só tem crescido e tende a crescer mais ainda, porque há uma demanda insatisfeita em parte da população, à medida que a distribuição de renda aumentar, e que o processo de urbanização e industrialização se consolidar. Então, a partir disso, há muitos outros conceitos que podem ser usados para o modelo, que diminui o risco de quem investe. Isso é um fato. Hoje, quando alguém vai vender usina num leilão, usina térmica, ele tem que apresentar um contrato de suprimento de combustível de longo prazo. Antigamente queriam fazer isso com preço fixo. Inclusive, o antigo presidente da EPE queria isso. Tinha que mostrar para ele que isso era uma estupidez monstruosa, que grande parte dos combustíveis estão vinculados indireta ou diretamente ao preço do petróleo, que tem um comportamento próprio no mundo, vinculado ao papel da OPEP, não é um mercado competitivo. Há um monte de distorções que não levam em conta a natureza verdadeira dos recursos e dos mercados. E por isso que a nossa tarifa, infelizmente, está nesses patamares. Como eu disse na apresentação inicial, nós contratamos equivocadamente muita capacidade térmica de alto custo, usinas de mais de R$200 o megawatt-hora, só de combustível, CVU, até 1.000, 1.200, 1.100. Isso tudo foi operado agora em 2012, 13 e 14. É evidente que era melhor ter tido mais usinas eólicas e mais usinas hidráulicas, ou outro tipo. Isso está claro. Isso tem a ver com o modelo. E a forma como os lobbies expressam suas posições dentro de todos os governos, no Congresso, nos palácios e nos ministérios, em todos os órgãos que participam das decisões. Por isso que eu acho que este governo que está aí hoje não tem moral nem história, pela própria sua origem, de propor esta mudança drástica que querem fazer, mandando para o Congresso agora esta lei. Ela tem que ser melhor debatida. Nós precisamos de mudança. Posso estar equivocado, aceito, já estive errado muitas vezes, mas do jeito que estão fazendo aí, vai piorar muito o sistema. Vai criar nichos de opções e oportunidades para alguns grupos de investidores, como sempre tem sido nas últimas décadas, em todos os governos. Os governos têm sido tomadores de interesse de lobbies e não tomadores do interesse público. Está muito carente. Então, eu sei que o senhor vai encerrar agora. Eu vou pedir a palavra para dar um anúncio como coordenador. Posso falar? Bom, é o seguinte. Sim. Então, Edio, ele está sugerindo que você passe para todos. Eu vou falar, depois que eu já terminei, algumas coisas da organização. Só isso.
Bom, eu gostaria de agradecer, então, aos palestrantes, né, pelas essas grandes contribuições, né, muito obrigado, e também a audiência, né, que teve um papel muito importante. Né. Agora,
se alguém da mesa quiser falar, é bem-vindo, Edio.
Sim. Alguém que gostaria de...
Não. O professor Zides vai se manifestar.
Bom, primeiro, acho que é inexorável que o armazenamento seja, né, eletroquímico, bateria de fluxo ou reforma de algum combustível para armazenar hidrogênio. Isso é inexorável. A sociedade vai demandar isso e vai se organizar nos próximos anos, e também ela vai utilizar muito a eletrônica de potência para fazer essa flexibilidade. Eu queria reforçar um pouco o que eu contei. O Instituto se preparou, né, porque não adianta baixar o preço, não é uma questão de preço, né, quando baixar o preço isso vai se utilizar. Nós vamos ter uma revisão da 482 na microgeração, dependendo de como ela for feita, ela vai abrir espaço para o uso de armazenamento em consumidores residenciais, com adoção de uma tarifa diferenciada, mas não adianta a gente ter acumulação barata em termos de quilowatt-hora ou megawatt-hora. Nós necessitamos ter uma regulamentação técnica dessa interface de conexão, sobretudo se ela estiver distribuída, né? Então, aqui nós estamos montando um sistema para serviços ancilares, que vai permitir, a ideia é que forneça subsídios para uma regulamentação técnica, uma NBR da interface de conexão para BMS, e também na parte de time shifting e peak saving, né, a gente está com um sistema de micro-redes, né, em operação, e daí a gente entende que vai poder sair muita contribuição para a regulamentação técnica. Então, antes de ter o preço baixo, né, a regulamentação técnica é importante, porque do outro lado da mesa estão senhores que têm a concessão e têm que manter a rede de distribuição e a linha de transmissão em operação. Também outra coisa que é importante, né, acho que em termos de acumulação, em grande quantidade, em blocos de energia, né, aonde vai se conectar. Um ponto onde que deve ser avaliado é na transmissão. E esse serviço vai ser um serviço que vai ser atribuído à transmissora, que hoje no nosso país ela só é uma autovia que cobra o pedágio. Ela pode também entrar como um ator nisso daí. Isso é um ponto importante, onde que se pode estabelecer digamos, uma estabilidade e um serviço novo dentro do setor. Qual é o papel da transmissora de energia, porque ela pode ter grandes blocos aí e estabilizar o sistema utilizando armazenamento, seja em hidrogênio, seja em bateria de fluxo ou em acumulação em baterias de lítio.
Bom, então eu vou para a administração Em primeiro lugar, eu quero registrar meu agradecimento à equipe administrativa do IE, que ajudou a colocar de pé esse seminário, o Antônio dos Prazeres, o Dantas, a Mariana, que está aqui comandando o microfone hoje também, a Viviane, Elaine, Renata, Beth e Mirtz. E também aos meus colegas professores, o Edio e o Ziles, que, junto com o Dr. Nilton Welson, o Carlos Messa, o Márcio Alcântaro, ajudaram a formatar o conjunto do seminário na atuação técnica. Então, eu quero registrar o agradecimento a todos pelo trabalho de dedicação. A segunda coisa é, nós voltaremos hoje à tarde às 14h30. Chama a atenção que o Dr. Michael Gravely, da Comissão de Energia da Califórnia, não pôde vir por problemas de logística, passaporte e tal, mas ele gentilmente, que trabalhou junto com o Dr. Ethan Elkind, que vai falar amanhã, na questão da experiência da Califórnia, ele vai estar por mídia às 14h30. Então, eu gostaria de que todo mundo pudesse estar de volta às 14h30, porque está acertado assim o esquema do tempo. E agora, a organização e o nosso fotógrafo oficial está pedindo a todo mundo, os convidados aí da organização, os palestrantes terão uma van para ir para o almoço, mas antes disso, na saída, pede que todo mundo, inclusive toda a plateia, vamos ver se cabe ali na frente da escadaria do auditório para tirar foto e registrar o evento hoje. Amanhã vamos fazer só com os palestrantes. Então, a todo mundo convidado a se postar ali na frente do auditório para tirar a foto oficial do evento. Cadê o Milton? Muito obrigado.
Obrigado.
Hey, so nice to see you. Yeah, very good talk.